Well, there were some interesting comments made today by some players. I guess by Ben Charrington in particular about the pitching situation.
Right.
Um, he apparently talked to Jason Mackey today. Quote, I would say that we would have some desire to bring in another starting pitcher. It just hasn't happened yet. And then he also goes on to say, um, Jason asked what made the market unpalatable for the Pirates. And Ben said, I don't know about unpalatable. Every offseason is different. We engage on a lot of players, both in free agency and trade. It's hard to predict which ones you're going to line up with. Blah, blah, blah. We chased down a lot this winter that ultimately didn't feel like it made sense. He also mentions that there were certain players that preferred another spot. We want to be opportunistic, look inside, outside. And he kind of talks about like pivoting to the bullpen with the Chapman deal. So, some things there to unpack. Basically, it sounds like they were in on some guys. They liked some people, but those people didn't necessarily like them, which led them to choose other teams. But at the end of the day, like, doesn't matter. Like Ben Cherington, you got to do your job. You got to close some deals, right? He didn't do it.
The chickens are kind of coming home to roost here, aren't they? Like they set themselves up for this.
What kind of Ohio shit is that?
That was rude, but anywho.
I've heard that phrase before. Yeah, that's a normal phrase.
But really, though, they've set themselves up in this way. You are a bad team for a long period of time. They probably don't have the best reputation as an organization. I really do think when you talk about those guys wanting to go elsewhere, it's a lot of what they've done to themselves. It's not the players that just absolutely don't want to be in Pittsburgh at all. It's what the organization has shown throughout the years.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to that, right? Like, there are players out there who are clearly, hey, we would prefer to go somewhere else other than Pittsburgh. But like, whose fault is that? That's our fault. It's the Pirates' fault for making that situation happen. There are other teams out there that have shown that they're more dedicated to winning baseball games. So players would rather go to those places, at the end of the day. So they really have no one to blame but themselves, right? It's like that, like the meme, right? Like we're all trying to find the guy who did this. Like they're the ones who caused this issue. And now we're in the situation where, like you said, DiNardo, we're in the same. I was willing to give him some time, but pitchers and catchers are there now. They signed Josh Fleming. That's the only thing they've done here to add to this rotation depth, quote unquote depth, because that's all he is. Like you don't want Josh Fleming starting multiple baseball games for you this year.
Yep. Yeah, I just think it's funny how those comments pretty much back up everything we've been saying all year, all offseason long. Right? I mean, isn't it basically we've been saying? Like, I mean, it does seem and appear that they have offered multi-year deals, which I know a lot of people came at us and said they don't do that. That's not going to happen. It happened. Ben's saying it. They've been turned down. That they probably had the money out there and they've been turned down. Like Ben is pretty much validating everything we've been saying this offseason in this regard. So like, I want to put that out there. And again, like, that's why you're right. Like I hated hearing all that today. I hated it. I just hated it. And you know why I hated it? Because
excuses.
Thank you. This is a results-oriented business. I keep referring to the business because everyone wants to refer to business, like the payroll, the money. So think of it as a business. Like, this is a results-oriented business. It's a sports league. You have to win. That is the goal, to win. And winning also provides other opportunistic pathways, right? That's to get free agents because they want to come there, to build this client-centric clubhouse and whatever, because then people want to come there, so like you have to do all the things in order to do this. And then that's why, again, like we talk about last offseason, what were we talking about then? Maybe they should start getting some multi-year free agents now. And that's what you're seeing the Royals do now. Like everyone wants to poke at the Royals and say, these are dumb. They're not even ready to compete. This is stupid. Well, the Royals don't want to be in this position today that the Pirates are in next year when they're ready to accelerate, right? So you do it now. You prepare. Maybe next year teams look at the Royals and say, you know what, there's something cooking there. They have more veterans that have multi-year deals. Like, no, guys, come on, right? It wasn't veterans that were there that then got traded and said, I love my time in Pittsburgh, but I mean, I did get traded and they don't even want me back now. Carlos Santana, Jose Quintana, right? Like your two biggest free agent signings that probably the biggest proponents to you as far as like, this is a great place to be at, were traded and weren't wanted back. So why does ex-free agent and the 2024 offseason want to come to Pittsburgh? So yes, it's excuses. And I'm tired of excuses.
The other weird part I thought was just him mentioning pivoting over to Chapman and that being part of the whole thing. I don't understand why that has something to do with the other. You can get both. Like, you don't have to solely focus on getting Aroldis Chapman now because everybody spurns you in free agency starting pitcher wise. Like, it's possible to do both here.
Yeah. I mean, I know Alex was on here last week and he said that, you know, we're looking at, like, they've got a budget and the budget was roughly $80 million, right? I guess where I'm coming from is like, why? Why is the budget $80 million? How much, like, we talked about how this team keeps talking about, like, hey, we'll invest when it's time. How much money have they saved up these past few years just being at the complete bottom of the barrel? Like, where's this money going? Like, you didn't spend the last 4 years. You're now ready to finally say, hey, you know what? We're ready to go. Like, let's go. That's all it is. And like, I don't want to mention it because, like, I'm going to mention it, but there are ways that this team can go out there right now and just answer all of their questions. There are free agents still available that would just say, if you went out and got them, and you'd have to pay, right? But it would answer all of your question marks that you've got going into the season. Where has this money gone these last few years? Why can't they go out and spend it right now? That's my question. Like, and it's never going to get answered, right? The budget's the budget. The budget's what it is. They're not going to go out there and sign Jordan Montgomery or Blake Snell or Cody Bellinger. That's not going to happen. But those guys are there, and those guys would answer all of the questions that this team has right now, and all it would do is cost money.
Yeah. I want to go back to,
but it's just not going to happen.
Okay, Ty.
Do those three guys put you towards the top of this division? Because I think they do. If you get, let's just say they got all three guys, just in this little hypothetical world here. I know we're just playing a fun little game here. They get all three guys, you're probably projected to win the division at that point, or at least finish second.
If you get all three of those guys, you're division favorites. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely.
You get two of them, you might be.
Yes, I agree. But that is why we've been so frustrated this offseason. Again, I want everyone to understand it. It's not because we think the Pirates are so terrible and this is complete misery. It's that the Pirates are this close to becoming something in this division, and it's like they're choosing not to, or they're excusing themselves of not being it. Now, granted, I understand like those three are going to cost some money to do, and yes, I get that, but like you get those three, and to me, you're the clear favorites in this division, especially since Corbin Burns out of Milwaukee. Like the absolute clear favorites.
Yeah, and I mean, if you go out and do that, you're raising your payroll to about $140 million, which obviously just not going to happen.
Right.
Like,
so if you get two of those players, I still think you're the clear favorites.
You get two of those guys, you're what, maybe 110?
Probably 120-ish.
If you had
it depends which two it is.
Yeah, I mean, all three.
Like if it's Bellinger and Snell,
those two are probably more expensive. 20 million plus, probably.
You got Snell and Jordan Montgomery. This team is cooking. Because also think about what that allows you to do. Like if you get those two players, which I'm tired of hearing about, like this pitching depth. Like, yes, you have pitching depth. That makes prospects expendable. Maybe you don't need Cody Bellinger. Maybe you can use some of this prospect capital to trade for someone who is also much cheaper and get someone that way. You know, like, again, that's what signing players can do for you. All this depth you have is still assets. You just don't need to use it. Now you go get something else. So you want to get 2 pitchers and trade maybe a Priester and a Solomito, or you know, like, pick and choose, like, whatever you want, right? Package something and get something else. Like, you can do that, and you're not paying Bellinger prices.
Yeah, and like, I don't know how much time I want to talk about this because these are just things that are just never going to happen. I guess one way that you could get kind of creative here, right? And you mentioned the multi-year deals, right? They didn't do them these past few years, but maybe like what's Brandon Woodruff? Like, I haven't heard a Brandon Woodruff rumor all offseason. Like, what if we just went out there and gave Brandon Woodruff a 3-year deal? I don't know. Like, could we do it?
Yeah,
Not sure.
That's a good point. And with the 60-day ILs opening up now, like, now would be the time that signing happens.
Yeah. But alas, $80 million payroll. That's our budget.